Thank you so much, David. Thank you, everyone. I'm Alice. I'm a recovered alcoholic. It's so lovely and a little nerve-wracking to be here, but I'm really, really excited and honored to be invited. And by the way, my home group here in Sacramento is called Group 3. We meet both in person and on Zoom. And David L is going to be coming out and speaking in a couple weeks here. So maybe I'll put the message in the information in the chat later. Um, yeah, and thank you for the invitation. I'm all about the big book, but that line from the 12 and 12 popped in my head when Alice extended the invitation, and I'll explain a little bit why. I'm going to read a little bit from that page 97 in the 12 and 12 in the middle of that paragraph, where it says, "But we recoiled from meditation and prayer as obstinately as a scientist who refused to perform a certain experiment, lest it prove his pet theory wrong. Of course, we finally did experiment. And when unexpected results followed, we felt different. In fact, we knew different. And so we were sold on meditation and prayer." Um, I'm going to share with you something that I wrote when I was struggling to just not drink. You can guess how that worked out. I was struggling and struggling, and I knew I had to do this on my own. I knew that I had to stay strong, and I knew that I just needed to try harder. And I knew that Alcoholics Anonymous wouldn't work because I knew in AA, I mean, I hadn't been to a meeting yet, but I knew this stuff, that in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's some sort of ceremony where they make you pick a god or a doorknob. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really weird, So I'm like, obviously it doesn't work. Um, and I thought that the solution to my drinking would be journaling. And I and actually I thought I was going to publish this. And when you hear it's so bad, but here's something that I wrote, and this is a few months before my clearly God-given sobriety date. I wrote, this is so bad. Chardonnay is necessary. It is water, it is air, it is sustenance, it is shelter. It overrides everything else in my life. It is more important than friends, work, health, love. It is needed and it is necessary. And I really believe that, and listen to that. It's water, it is air, it's sustenance, it's shelter, right? And later on that same page in the 12 and 12, there's this beautiful line: "Those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine." I mean, you could have just knocked me over with feather first time I read that line. But and I'll describe my current practice and experiences with step 11, but I also want to share just the very first time I ever prayed. And it's because of you guys. It's because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I obviously the journaling didn't work. I still drank. I drank and drank and drank, and I finally had a moment where I realized that I finally got it through my skull that I could not stop myself from picking up that next first drink. What it means to be powerless, what it means to be beyond human aid, even my own, that my own strength and determination and love for my family and all of those things just wasn't going to stop me from picking up. And that was so devastating, so devastating. And I'm so grateful for that desperation today. And some of you know this part of my story, but I'm a crazy cat lady. and I had that realization. My husband asked me, he caught me drinking before going to detox. I'm just drinking right out of a bottle as I'm trying to pack my bags. And he just looks at me and he says, "Is that going to be your last drink?" And I realize I don't know how to have my last drink. I don't know how to do that. It terrified me. And we get down to the detox facility. They led me back to my room and there was a cat sitting on the bed. And very unexpected. And I thought, This is a sign from the universe. And I had a moment where I thought maybe there's a power greater than me. I just had never considered that before. How embarrassing, right? And it's a cat sitting on a bed, but I fell to my knees and I started crying because I thought, is this what people are talking about? That there can be a sign that I feel like everything's in divine order and I'm supposed to be here right now. Not I'm going to be okay, but I already am right now. And that detox was right next to an AA meeting, and they made us go. And for the first time in my life, I heard the word God with completely different ears. I just had to reach that point of desperation first. I had to be willing, I had to recognize that my human power wasn't working, and it felt like drowning. Oh, of course I'm going to reach for a life preserver. And up until then, that life preserver just looked like a round piece of plastic. It meant nothing to me. God meant nothing to me. Your spiritual solution meant nothing. And suddenly I have this experience where I'm grasping for it. I want it. I want what you guys have. And swigging out of that bottle that morning remains my last drink. Obviously not Alice Power. That was the morning of October 14th, 2013. Getting out of that detox facility, I was terrified, but I'd already met my sponsor. I met her on day 0. I had someone offer a solution. I had a home group that, my original home group, that made it really clear that I wasn't going to recover by hanging out with them in meetings. That, there's actions to take. And I believed them. I believed them because they were demonstrating what this 11th step looks like. And they sure made God sound attractive. And I don't remember at what point we were at in the book, but when I was 2 weeks sober, I was sitting in my car in my lunch hour, which is where I usually drank, and I had one of those moments where I wanted to drink, but I don't want to drink. But I want to drink. I don't want to drink. I want to drink. I don't want to drink, and this is going on and on and on, and I don't even remember closing my eyes, but I must have because I opened them, and there were beams of light coming off this brick wall where I was parked, and I can't describe it. I cannot, and I know there are people here who have had one of those bright light experiences. You know what I'm talking about. We know they're real, and they're indescribable. I don't know what I couldn't, but it was a feeling along with a vision where I just, this overwhelming sense of safety. And that night, as I was laying in bed and I was journaling, and I thought, I really think this higher power stuff is real. I really think it's real. I realized that I hadn't thought about drinking the whole rest of the afternoon, that constant thought, that battle was gone. I can't do that to myself. That's not of me. And I looked up at my ceiling, and there were beams of light on my ceiling. And I look over, and it was my bedside lamp. But I'd never see it do that before, And by the way, cats sit on beds, but that was God too, because I received it as God. And in that moment, I looked up at my ceiling and I just kept saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm praying. This is what people are talking about. I'm talking to this power I don't understand and I can't comprehend. And, very recently I completely did not think it was real. And now I'm talking to it. And I am all in because I've never felt like this before. I've never had that thought of drinking gone from my head. And I was like, what else can he do? What else can this God do? And then I had, more grandiosity. And I remember journaling and thinking, what am I going to call my higher power? Maybe Howard from like the Lord's Prayer, Howard be thy name. Like I thought I had to be cute and fancy about that. And no disrespect to anyone who does that, but I thought I had to be fancy. And I had an overwhelming thought of, you can just call him God, right? And I was like, stop trying to be different, Alice. And I've been calling him God ever since. And that bright light experience was not an awakening. It was an experience. I remained still very selfish and self-centered, and I had lots of work to do, and I still do, in taking these steps and facing my resentments and making amends to people, and so much action to take. But that spiritual experience, although I still was still very sick, but that experience gifted me with a rock solid faith where there is, Calvin, no doubt that this power is real. And since that moment, I just want to get to know that power better. And I'm grateful that we have this framework with which we can do that. That all my ideas about God, all my ideas of myself and what alcoholism is, and about the people that I thought who had wronged me, like everything turned on its head. And I started feeling a tingling feeling when I would pray. I can't make that happen. These things that are happening within me, but not of me. And today, as I practice step 11, I love that these directions we have in the big book, I can do them over and over and over again and expect different results, because God is limitless. It keeps getting better and sweeter. And it gets really fun to be wrong. It gets really fun to find out that I'm wrong about something, because then the world just keeps getting bigger. My own mind will still limit things and decide fixed ideas or judgments about, how things are supposed to be or whatever. And whereas I used to get really defensive and I would dig my heels in and have to be right, I just don't have to be right anymore. What a freedom that is. And the flow that I get to go with in continually striving to just do whatever God wants me to do, is, man, I had been making really heavy going of life for a little over 4 decades there, but I'm grateful for all those experiences today. And today, the way I practice step 11, I go with the suggestions that we have in the big book at night. I ask those questions that are on 86, essentially asking God, how was my 10th step today? What did I miss? In my 10th step awareness, I'm going to miss stuff. So where have I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid? And I ask God those questions, because if I'm asking myself, I will get into that morbid reflection, and self doesn't know. Self thinks that self is just fine. But if I'm asking God, I can trust that the answers will come. And so I ask God those questions about how was my 10 step awareness today, as well as going further, like, was I kind and loving toward all? What could I have done better? Was I packing into the stream of life, or was I thinking of myself most of the time? You know, and it's a rare night that I can, report that I've done everything I could possibly do. But I also get to practice this without delving into self pity like I used to. I can see my wrongs without getting so wrapped up in them, because I can strive for perfection and know I'll never hit it. And that's a neat trick for, a person like me who had very black and white thinking for a long time. Um, so I make that review, and several years ago, I noticed that although I was pretty disciplined with the nightly review in step 11, and I'd always add in with my prayers just how grateful I am, and like looking back on the day, and whatever I'd been worried about was fine, and and every morning I would wake up intending to ask God to direct my thinking, but what's my first thought? Oh, what time is it? You know, um, 5 more minutes. What did I agree to do today? How can I get out of it? Like some form of fear when that alarm clock goes off, or if I wake up before the alarm, oh my God, I woke up before the alarm. I cheated myself out of sleep. I'm going to try to go back to sleep. All of those thoughts. And I realized that I was in some sort of form of fear when I wake up. But every night I'm like, oh my God, it worked out, God. everything, everything that I was fearful about and worried about, it was just fine. I'm like, when am I going to connect those dots? So one night in my nightly review, I asked God, can you can you help me wake up with this same faith and gratitude that I feel right now? And the next morning, I'm just gaining consciousness, and the only thing in my head was just God and peace. Like, he did that. And so I continue to do that every night. I just ask God to help me wake up with him, and it works, like, why wouldn't it work? Ask God to help you pray and meditate, and he does. Man. And it still gives me like a thrill every time, because like, and I hope I never cease to be amazed, right? Like, I don't want to take that for granted, because it's thrilling and joyous that this power that's so loving is it gets to be a part of me on a daily basis. And it's so fun when like these intuitive thoughts that you know we all know, or I'm assuming most of us know, that how joyous it is as we get to sponsor others and we get to see that light come on, right? But then, like, when I get to have passing encounters with somebody that maybe I only meet once, and then I find out later that maybe something I said or did had an impact, like, it's like that. I don't know why it just tickles me, because I know it's not me. I know it's not of me, but it happens through me. And it's like, yes, please, more of that. Use me, God, use me. I don't talk about this much um, at group level, but I suffer from chronic pain, and it um, it came on after I had gotten sober. Thank goodness, because I'm sure um, I would not have responded well, had I been drinking at the time. Um, and although in the beginning it felt like the worst thing in the world, today it has enabled me to be home and to be available, to be helpful to people. This platform has enabled us to be helpful to more people more frequently. Um, And so today I'm at a place where when the pain is, flaring up more intensely, it sounds corny, but I can sincerely say, thank you, God. Keep using me. I don't have a desire to change a thing. Um, and this trust and faith that I have in God and God's plan doesn't come from a place of logic or reason or intellect. And so sometimes it feels weird, like, like, because I lived for so long relying on, my my own self and my own ability to reason and all of that. And I was so attached to that. And so it can feel strange sometimes, and yet um, the peace is there regardless of what happens. Um, I don't have to be so attached to my way anymore. Um, and it, we've got that line in the book in chapter 7 where it says, when we look back, we see that the things that came to us when we placed ourselves in God's hands are better than anything we could have planned. I strive to feel that now. I want to feel it now rather than looking back. Now, in those times of trouble and strife and uncertainty, right now, my husband and I are facing some uncertainty, some big decisions to make, life stuff. And I can step back and be like, why am I not scared right now? Like this is the kind of thing that would have me tripping. And yet, nope, still trusting God and still trusting that, if we somehow make a decision that maybe isn't right, so to speak, I know I can learn from it, and man, I am not a person who spoke like this 10 years ago. And I should share, I I grew up in an alcoholic home. Uh, well, that sounds dramatic. My dad's an alcoholic, and so there was some trauma there, in childhood. And I had this idea that faith was something that you were either born with or you weren't. I don't know where I got that idea from. I didn't even think of it in those words. I didn't realize it until retrospect. Like, yeah, I really just had this feeling that I'll never have faith. Like my sister, who's a normie, she always wanted to go to church. I never did. And so it was just like, that's how it is. And I really um, believed that I was not missing out on anything, that you all that have your beliefs, like I'm glad that keeps you happy. I think it's delusional, but that's fine. I was never a seeker. I did not, I really did not think that I was missing out on anything. And so thank God for that alcoholism, right? Thank God for every drink I did not want to take that convinced me the limitations of my human power, how devastatingly limited my human power is. And I should share that my father he's been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous for almost 27 years now. I had evidence right in front of me that Alcoholics Anonymous works, that it's effective, but I could not connect those dots. I believed my opinion over your experience until I need the experience myself. But and my parents live back in the Midwest, and I'm out here in California. But one time when I'd gone out to visit after I had gotten sober, my mom pulled out a bunch of old drawings and poems I had written as a kid that she found just, rooted away in a closet somewhere. And she shows them to me. And you know what the poems were about? Not about cats. They were about God, written by me as a child. I had no memory of that. I'm looking at this, I'm like, when? Deep down in every man, woman, and child. It was there. I still don't remember it, but it was there. And now it's back. I wouldn't want to relive um, the decades of uncontrollable drinking. I would not want to relive them, but if God wanted me to, I would. And I'm grateful for all of that time. And today I get this connection, this guidance, that handbook that we all wanted growing up. Think everybody else got the handbook, everyone else got, um, kind of knows how to face life, and I don't. I'm different. All of that kind of thinking. And today I'm not so different, and I've got that handbook right inside of me. And as long as I'm willing to continue to face my current self-centeredness, my current delusion that I'm somehow separate or different or better or worse than anyone else, that seeking of self that separates me from you and from God, I'll still have those thoughts that, like, if I'm uncomfortable, that I need to seek comfort. That sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? Like I want my blankie and to binge watch some TV and a cat on my lap and maybe some comfort food. And man, that doesn't last. When I'm uncomfortable, I need to comfort somebody else, and that's what does it. I had it so backwards, wanting to seek to love myself, seek acceptance, seek self-forgiveness, and I'll never receive that by seeking it. But when I continue to seek God, by helping you, by being inconvenienced, by being open to helping others, man, I'm not so interested in myself, but I'm good with me in a way I never was. I just before this, I got to meet with a sponsee, and praise always feels really uncomfortable, because I know that it's I don't take credit for my sobriety. It's not a personal accomplishment; it's a gift. But I just loved her wording. She just said, "You matter," and I started crying. you know, I and I used to go around hurting people, and I didn't even know it. You know, so I want to keep going around helping people and not know it. Um, but we do matter. Our words matter. These little acts of kindness, just responding to that God guidance. When an idea pops in my head to reach out to somebody or call somebody or send someone a picture of my cat, because I do that. I'm the person who does that. But to reach out and connect, when I respond to that in that moment, and I know it's God and He's working through me, like, what an honor is that, right? What an honor that we get to experience God working through us. Like, I and this, I hope it doesn't sound like bragging. I mean, it's not. I'm excited about it. But not too long ago, I just happened to, the idea popped in my head. I reached out to somebody that I haven't seen in a little while. I'm not close to this person. I don't think we've ever spoken on the phone. It popped in my head. So I reached out to this guy, just, hey, and a text, wasn't even a phone call. And this guy's been sober for a long time, and he reported to me that in that very moment he was about to drink and he didn't. How thrilling is that? Like, I hope I don't miss those opportunities. God wants to work through me. I hope I'm open and I take that action in that moment. What an honor, right? Like, that wasn't Alice making a decision. That wasn't Alice trying to be helpful. Just open. Um, I'm so grateful for those little giant opportunities that we get in here. And I want to still feel that tingle and that amazement that God's real. That's one of the most surprising things that I had no idea. Um, so yeah, though I say it like I wouldn't want to go through it again. If I had to, yeah, I would drink for another 20 years to get to know God again, if that's what He wanted me to do. And I'm not saying, I mean, like in another lifetime, like, um, like I'm open to suffering. I'm open to whatever His plan is. And the fact that it's just so magical. It's just so magical. And I feel like I'm going to babble some more, so I'm going to wrap it up there. But I want to say that I love you. I love this opportunity. I love our literature. I put my phone number in my profile name because I truly am open to opportunities to interact with people and to be helpful. May I never forget that this is a gift. And I'm just, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm really, really, really grateful. and that is enough out of me. Thank you again. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Kelly M., come on up.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly, and I'm an alcoholic. Alice, thank you so much for your message. I've heard you before. You're fantastic. I love it. I do have a question, but you kind of sort of ended answering it near the end. But if you can elaborate a little bit more so I can get just a little bit more from you, be greatly appreciative. You talk about if you were to ever drink again, not that you want to, but if it was God's wishes, that you would surely do it again. So, really appreciative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's weird that I said that. Like it came out of my mouth, and I'm really thinking because I always think about like I don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, and I'm open to suffering, but I would not want to relive all my years of alcoholism. And then I was kind of like correcting myself, like, well, whatever God wants me to do, like if there's another life, if I come back in another life and go through it again, yeah, to be helpful to others, like just trusting in His plan. And I don't think God ever wants me to drink, and and the obsession has been lifted. I've been restored to sanity. But hey, like whatever God's plan is, like that's where my trust is. I'm along for the ride. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you for the question.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kelly. Nancy, come on up.
Thank you. It's nice to be with everybody tonight. I'm Nancy and I'm an alcoholic. It was great hearing Alice, and I really appreciate that. Can you say a little bit more, if you're comfortable, about like what the process of your 10th and 11th looks like? I always struggle with that, with making it meaningful and having it not be just my voice, but having it be God being able to speak to me in a way that moves me forward. But I get a little tangled up sometimes.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. So my 10th step is really the awareness all day of my own discomfort, and that if I'm uncomfortable, it's probably going to be selfishness, honesty, resentment, and fear. And in that moment, to ask God to remove it. If I act on it, and I owe amends, make an amends right there. But then turning my thoughts to someone I can help as part of my 10th step awareness goes a long way. And then at night, I'm just asking those questions, that recap. And I'm asking God too to like help me be open to the answers, help me be open to whatever corrective measures should be taken, and to really be willing to hear that voice so that I can face whatever self-centered thought action I've taken and move closer to God. I hope that makes sense. I I'm also like, if you want to take down my number, like I've had some experiences in the third and fourth step that just like completely transformed the way I see resentment. So I'm happy to chat later about that too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Yes, thank you, Nancy. And Alice, come on up.
Alice, alcoholic. Alice, thank you for a lovely talk. And I always ask the question about how do we transmit our knowing to the people we work with. So I want to frame it. Often when we talk about willingness in Alcoholics Anonymous, we talk about it being the cornerstone, right? The willingness to believe. But I heard you talk about a different kind of willingness, right? The willingness to be fully surrendered to the power, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if God wants me to suffer, like God has sent me pain, like thank you, God, for everything. Thank you, God, for everything. And it's such a deeply different thing than just the willingness to believe, right?
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that when you got here, if somebody had said, yay, let's be willing to suffer, you'd have been like, what? No, I didn't
Yeah.
come for that. So can you talk about how you transmit that profound deepening of willingness to the people that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alice. Thank you. I love you. I find that really sitting with someone through that first step experience is key. Dwelling on the hopelessness, because when the alcoholic fully feels like, oh my God, I'm going to drink again, whether I want to or not, and like I cannot manage my own life, like on my own power, this is not working. When they feel the heaviness of that, they'll crack open and the power's already there. You know, if I try to convince somebody to seek God or convince somebody to have willingness, it's feels like it's a wasted effort. Like I don't have to convince the willing. And I personally wasn't willing until I truly realized the predicament that I was in. And then it seems that they kind of take off, you know, I mean, like a rocket, you know, like really interested in seeking this and experiencing, and then start experiencing that power. They start seeking more of it. But yeah, it's sitting with that first step pain, I think, is key.
Thank you so much, Alice. Nikki G, come on up.
Hi, everyone. Nikki, alcoholic. Thank you so much for your share, Alice. It was really nice to hear from you and exactly what I needed to hear. As I sit here in my uncomfortableness of everything that I have going on in my life and just always like trying to find a solution, you gave me the solution tonight. It was like, as I'm seeking comfort and as I'm like trying to fix this and, you know, through food or alcohol or any of these things, like your answer was like, I give comfort instead. And I'm like, to me, that was like such a God shot. Like that's what I need to do. I need to be outward and giving comfort. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. When did that click for you? Because I'm still pretty much new in my sobriety. I'm going to be at 2 years in December, and I was beating myself up for a long time for like not being perfect, but just realizing that this is my journey. I'm doing the best that I can. And all that matters is I'm still sober, one day at a time. But when did that, like, I need to give comfort and I'm like actually doing it. Like, when did that set in your journey? And I know everyone's looks different, but just would love to hear more about like when that started, those actions started happening. Thank you.
Absolutely. I would thank you so much, Nikki. I would love to say that it clicked in step 3, you know, because I think that's where when we start shifting to thinking of others instead of ourselves. but for me, I think it really clicked when I started sponsoring, especially when I had like several sponsees at once, because when I had just one sponsee, I was like all about her and trying to manage her life, which is not what we're supposed to do, you know? And then when I started having like 3 or 4 women at a time, I was more about, oh my gosh, I want to be effective. I want to be helpful. And learning the literature and praying more and leaning into 11 so that I can be effective in 12. And that's when it really started clicking, like, because it works, you feel the results. And then you're like, oh, okay, I need to keep helping. It pays off. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Nikki. Ali, come on up.
Hi, everybody, Ali Grateful Alcoholic. Alice, thank you so much for nice to see you again. Thank you so much for a beautiful share. You know, as you were sharing, I was just smiling a lot inside because I could relate to a lot. And I was thinking about a couple of things, and I have a question. One is that when Teresa and I were sort of meditating on contemplating on the format of the meeting, the way it came was to set it up so it's not a line by line going through the book journey, right? And I am a big book guy, and all the people that I admire are deep in the big book. But what I have found is that the people that have the depth and weight that really just moves my heart, they are deep in the big book and they walk the big book. So there's no need to refer to it line by line. They pour their experience on the book, you know what I mean? And that's what you've done today, because you poured your experience and it's opened up my heart. And I can really relate to everything you're saying because that's such depth and weight, your experience. Thank you for that. The second thing I want to say, that one thing you said, it just hit me so hard, because it's just, that's my experience. And it was so beautifully put. You said today, if I'm not mistaken, or these days, I welcome the suffering. That's my experience. And it reminded me of a couple of lines of a Rumi poem where he says, being a candle is not easy. In order to give light, one must burn first, you know? So I get that. I get that. And I want to ask you this question, okay? If you sort of touched on it, please forgive me. I've been in and out of, like, during your talk, I've been in and out of, like, reflecting my own experience and coming back to you. That's just my experience today. So would you please share with us, if you're comfortable, at this point right now, if you can think about and pray on, what is one of the lowest points in the last 10 years of your recovery? One of the darkest valleys where you had to burn. And then in hindsight, when you look back, why are you grateful for it now?
Yeah.
Why are you welcoming that? Like, you know, when I look back, I see what I put in God said, that, if you would please.
Right. 2 things come to mind. The physical pain that I have, because at first, and like seeking medical help and all these things, like it felt like I had to fix it, you know, and then I realized that it's a gift, even though it doesn't feel like it, you know, like, oh, but it is. But another one that was just a very low point since I got sober was when my husband read my 4th step. And and it was just as absolutely messy as you can imagine, but we got closer as a result, and we're better than ever today. And I would not have planned that for myself.
That's a great question. Thank you, Ali. David Love, come on up.
Thank you. And thank you, Alice, as always. That's just wonderful. And I hope I'm not breaking the format, but I don't have a question. But most people here probably don't know this, but I'm a caregiver for my wife. She has stage 5 kidney disease. And we moved here from California about 3 years ago. We live with our oldest son and daughter-in-law so we can have some backup and things like that. And about 3 years ago, my sponsor, who's in the Sacramento area, he told me I needed to go deeper into step 11. And I've been around here quite a while. And but I really wasn't doing much in the morning at all. And at about that same time, we started two-way prayer. And if you look at the bottom of 86, that's what it's talking about. It doesn't say two-way prayer. It doesn't say it's in writing, but that's what it says. It says the answers will come. And that's what they did in the Oxford group. They did two-way prayer. And if you don't know, you can go to twowayprayer.org if anybody's interested. But it's whatever's on your heart, you're asking God for help or for guidance, that sort of thing. And then you just kind of sit back and just kind of meditate on what I asked for. And the answers do come. And I write that down. And this week is the 3rd anniversary for me of doing two-way prayer. And what I love about two-way prayer, and I've had people tell me, oh, I talk to God all the time. I ask him all that. The biggest benefit to me is like a 4-step. I can go back 3 years later and I can read what I wrote 3 years later. And that's right when we first moved here. And what I was writing 3 years later is, why do I have to do all this for my wife? We've been married a long time. We've never been divorced all these many years. And through this process of everything that I do, I've gotten to that point where I say, I get to help her. You know, I have to help her with everything. She's on home dialysis, and I have to leave at 9 o'clock to start setting up for dialysis for the night. She does it overnight. And then in the morning, she gets off dialysis, and I fix breakfast, and then I walk her dog, and then I fix my breakfast. I do all those kinds of things. And now I get to do it. And I go to God constantly all day long. And when I'm close to God, these kinds of things just pop into my head. And this is a little card, you know, like the doctors and dentists give you with your next appointment on them, right? So I had a couple of these sitting around, and I wrote some 10-step stuff on this side. But, you know, we talk all the time about when I retire at night and on awakening. But there's 4 other things after that, the top of page 87, that we're supposed to do all during the day. So I wrote those down. Thy will be done. It says, say many times throughout the day. Admit that I'm no longer running the show. I wrote that down. I wrote number 3, pause when agitated or doubtful. And I wrote that down. And number 4, I wrote down, ask for the right thought or action. And I carry this in my pocket all day, everywhere I go. And if I'm getting a little bit off and, you know, all that sort of thing, I just reach in my pocket and touch this card, and everything is fine. So I just wanted to share that. And I love you, Alice. And thanks for the opportunity to be here this evening. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David. Teresa F., come on up.
Hi, everyone. Teresa, alcoholic. Thank you so much, Alice. Beautiful. And one who suffers pain. Heard you completely on that one, and so many levels. You know, Dave had me, when he was saying something, it had me think about a question. And I've been asking this question to a few folks in our conversations. And that is that I hear us talk about, think about, share about how we talk to God, right? Through prayer and meditation, or how we sit still, the practice of sitting still. That moment of silence, or literature we read, or these moments of pausing. There's several things I often hear about my way of communicating to God. And so I've been asking the question, how does one hear? So that's my question to you, right? Because that's just as much as the God of my understanding. You know, that's what Dave reminded me. Some may hear through a two-way prayer. And the Big Book to me talks a lot about intuition. If I really look at it as developing intuition, or going back to that place of origin of our intuition. So how would you say you hear? How would you say you hear? Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. It feels like an idea will pop into my head, but it's like clearly not me racking my own brain to come up with it. And I believe that's God, because I'll have these experiences where I'm like, okay, obviously that's God, you know. Sometimes it feels like words, you know. I don't hear an actual voice, but it'll but it feels like words in my head, you know. And sometimes it's just a feeling, or that gut knowing, or even better, taking action, like just doing something that I hadn't thought through, you know, to intentionally do, but I'm just suddenly, without premeditation, picking up and calling somebody or accomplishing a task or doing something. And I'm like, oh, that's me receiving God's guidance and actually putting it into action.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Marilyn V, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Marilyn. I am an alcoholic. And Alice, thank you so much. What a pleasant surprise, because I was not expecting you, even though I saw Alice on the flyer. Duh. But at any rate, what a lovely, lovely, lovely share. And I totally related to so many things that you said, and you brought a lot to my mind. I mean, so I definitely have a question, but I'm thinking on some of the things that you were saying, how throughout the day you move in pace, with your higher power, something of that effect. And just how beautiful how you established this relationship and all the signs that you got. I got them all. I get it, Alice. That was beautiful. But, today I was practicing because I'm still at the phase of practicing. And my question is going to relate to this, where I wanted to move in love today. So everything that I did, I would move as I moved throughout the day. I continued to tell myself, go in love, keep it in love, everything, even when I was walking my dog, because I passed by a lady's house and she gets mad when he poops on her grass. And my thought was, if she comes out here today, and then immediately I said, go in love, go in love. So I had to remind myself in each scenario to go in love, right? And at the end of the day, or the day's not quite over, but at the end of my day out, I felt like, I looked back over the day to see how I had done, right? And I felt like I stayed in that space, and I thanked my higher power, because I know it was my higher power. But my question is to you, I have to practice it, right? I had to tell myself all day, do this, the thought would come, and then I'd say, go in love. And just that saying would bring me back to where I knew God's will for me was. Is this a working part of your, has it become a working part of your mind as you move through the day? It just happens, or do you, because I'm practicing. So that's my question. Is it a working part of your mind? Something like that.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's so good to see you too. It feels like a working part of my mind. What I have to practice at is continually asking God for guidance and being open to facing my own self-centeredness. But I had a really magical experience with a resentment I carried for decades just being lifted right out of me. And that felt like a cheat code to the rest of my life. Like, oh my God, if that person's not a villain, then nobody is. And now I don't get annoyed by people anymore. Like, I have a love for people that I used to not have. And so it's like that resentful reaction to people that need to play God just went away. Not of me, or not like an accomplishment of mine. It was just everything flipped after that fourth step. And so I rarely get annoyed by people the way I used to. But I still, I have to keep practicing the asking for his guidance. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Marilyn. The infamous Kevin T, come on up.
Hi guys. I'm Kevin, and I am an alcoholic. Awesome message, Alice. I've heard you before, and I used to go to a meeting Mondays, and you led a big book study with Rebecca's big book study, and it was pretty awesome. And I always like when I listen to you, Alice. And one of my, well, I was thinking about a question. I find when I have years of sobriety, but I still sometimes get in a moment where I don't feel anything. I don't feel God, and it's dry. And I was just wondering, how do you get out of this dryness when you pray to God or you ask Him for anything, and nothing seems to be coming at all? And just wondering, how do you get out of that dryness when uh, all your prayers don't seem to work and you're still in that dry mode? So how do you get out of that?
That's a great question, Kevin. The best way out of it, I've found, is helping somebody. And I don't know why. No, I do know why. If I reach out and like help a stranger, like it's so quick and effective, because if I'm in that mode of like I can't feel God, I'm in self, I believe. And if I go to like help my husband, then if I'm already in that mode, then I'm going to get resentful that he didn't respond to my help or whatever. I can get it twisted. But when I seek to just ask God to help, even if I can't feel God in that moment, ask God to help me be useful. And then, we have alcoholics at our fingertips today, online and social media, and just reaching out and seeking to help somebody. And it gets me back right sized. And the interactions we get to have with other people, the things that transpire is like, okay, like God's here, His presence is right here. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Kevin. Sin R, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sin and I'm an alcoholic. And I just want to thank you so much, Alice, for your share. I heard you on a meeting, I don't know, several months ago, maybe in the early spring or something like that, on a meeting. And I was really touched by that thing you shared, that you was relieved from, your life, and, the resentment that you had carried for so long, and somebody helped you to get out of it. That was amazing. But then again, you said a lot of amazing things tonight. But what really hit me, because I'm a selfish person, but I'm a self-sufficient person, the way I grew up. And so, I was listening and you said something about your mom found some letters that you wrote, right? I'm not sure if you was drinking or not, but you didn't remember, right? And so, but when you got them, obviously you was sober, right? You recovered, right? So when you saw those letters, being in recovery like you were, how did that, did that really go deep? Because when you shared that, you put your hands like this here, like something really, hit you so deep. And so I was wanting to know what that feeling was like.
Good question. Yeah. So what my mom had found was like poems I had written when I was like 8 years old. And I was so surprised that I had written about God, because I don't remember that at all. I don't remember ever believing in God or being interested in God until, alcoholism brought me to my knees. So I was really surprised that, oh no, I had been, as a child. And why I forgot all about that, I don't know, but I was really surprised. And I do also look back sometimes at things I wrote when I, as an adult drinking, and the difference is startling. Like it's looking at a totally different person. Thank God.
Thank you so much, Sin. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the meeting here. Sin, Alice, would you like to leave us with anything before we move on with the meeting?
Thank you so much, Philip. Just thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I don't think I caught up with all the messages in the chat, but I just want to say thank you. Like, this is really, what a lovely group. I'm really, really honored. And I mean it when I have my phone number up there, like I'm down to connect with anybody. So thank you for the opportunity.